Welcome to this short analysis of Zulfikar Ghose's poem Decomposition. So it describes an image of a beggar sleeping on the streets of Bombay, now Mumbai. But actually, on closer reading, the poet is essentially critiquing both poverty and his own role in creating sort of art out of human suffering. So the Pope was born in India, grew up in Pakistan, later moved to Britain, and his experiences gave him an awareness of the fact that writers often and photographers often romanticize poverty, particularly in South Asia, turning this real suffering into these picturesque images. And so this poem represents that issue essentially. Can art ever truly represent poverty and deprivation without exploiting it? Structurally, the poem is written in a single stanza of free verse without rhyme or any rhythm. This creates a fluid, almost conversational tone, which mirrors the speaker's self-reflection. You'll notice towards the end of the poem, particularly, the speaker is particularly self-reflective and questions their own morals in creating art out of this man's suffering. The enjambment throughout the poem lets thoughts sort of run over the line endings, showing how uneasy and unresolved the poet feels about his own actions in taking the image in the first place. But you also notice that he ends every fourth line with an end stop, which could possibly reflect the way that the poet shifts his focus and tone. So in the first four lines, we sort of go from description, then to social context, and then to a more sort of reflective tone. So if we have a look at some of the key quotations, it's in first person. The poet, I have a picture I took in Bombay, frames reality. This idea of a picture gives us a sense of detachment from the situation. The reference to Bombay grounds the image in a real post-colonial location. You then have reference to like a description of the actual man on the streets, grey haired, wearing shorts, a dirty shirt, shadow thrown aside like a blanket. You know, the description is stark. It rejects any romanticization of poverty. The simile emphasizes this kind of societal neglect. And then another simile, arms and legs could be cracks in the stone, sort of strips away his humanity completely. And then you also have that metaphor, he lies veined into the stone, a fossil man. He's almost frozen in time. You get this sense of decay, this loss of vitality. If we go back up to the ant's journeys, the fly's descents, again, we get this feeling of decay and neglect. It kind of forces the reader to confront poverty for what it is. It's not something that's pretty and lovely and can be turned into art. It's real. It's suffering. The crowd passingly bemused by a pavement trickster and quite indifferent. You get that enjambment there reflecting the lack of pause from the crowd. They're kind of entertained passingly, but they're completely indifferent to this man who is struggling. They ignore the realities of poverty. Then you've got the repetition of asleep on the pavement, you can see in the second line, and then again, emphasizing that societal detachment. The man becomes sort of part of the background and no one's really too bothered about it. And then towards the end, the tone shifts. The speaker becomes self-critical. He glibly called it the man on the street, how typical it was of India, emphasizing that generalization, how typical it was of India. It critiques this post-colonial themes of poverty being turned into a spectacle. And then finally, you get this emphasis on the man's fragility and vulnerability when his posture is one of weeping. And then he ends with this idea of attempting to compose art out of his hunger and solitude, which shows us that actually he places emphasis on the heart of the ethical issue here, which is, can you really create art out of human suffering?